Hi everyone, it's Lisa here. I'm delighted to be joining My Favourite Things this month as a guest designer. Today I'm going to be sharing a card with you using a couple of sets from their August release. I'm going to be using the Painted Poppies and also a sentiment from Friendship Rocks. And this video has been sponsored by My Favourite Things. They are very kindly giving me a gift card as a giveaway, and I'll share more details on how you can enter for that at the end of the video. I'm just going to quickly run through my supplies with you. This is the Painted Poppies stamp set. Sentiment is coming from Friendship Rocks, and I'm going to be painting using my Gansai Tambi paints. This is the 36 pan set. I'm only going to be using 4 or 5 colours, and I'm going to be painting onto Archie's cold press paper. This is 300 GSM, so really good quality. And I'm going to be doing a loose watercolour style, which I really think suits this style of stamp. So I'm going to start by stamping my images out. My cardstock is cut to 4 1/4 by 7 inches, so it's going to be quite a tall card. And I'm going to begin by stamping the first poppy, and I double stamp this because the cardstock is textured. I want to make sure that I get a good impression on there, and I'm using some hybrid ink from My Favourite Things. This is in steel grey. I didn't want to use black. I thought that might be a little bit harsh, so I double stamp that, and then I'm stamping onto the masking paper now, and I'm going to fussy cut that out, lay it down, and that will allow me to stamp my second image, which will then sit behind the first. And I'm fussing around a little bit here, making sure that I get the position right. So I go ahead and I double stamp that as well. And I'm then going to start doing the stems. So I put the stamp down. It's really quite a thin stem, and I did manipulate it a little bit so that I could get them to go in the direction that I wanted. And I didn't ink all the way to the bottom because the stem's actually quite small. I want to elongate my stem to the end of the card, so I just didn't ink at the bottom, and that allows me to get my Copic multi-liner, which is waterproof, and I'm just going to draw that down to the bottom of the card. Just going to take my panel down now onto my clipboard, and I'm using a low tack masking tape to do this. Although I don't use loads of water, I don't want to get any kind of warping, so it's always safest to do that. And I'm just going to put the green onto a ceramic tile. I find it easier to work off a tile really, so I can add my water. I rarely paint directly from the pan, and I'm just going to add in the lightest green here. The stems are really thin, so I'm using a number 2 round brush, and I'm just working quite carefully to make sure that I don't go outside of the lines. And I do add the second green in a little bit later on after this has dried. I don't think you really need it, but I did add it in anyway. And now I'm going to start working on the actual poppies themselves, and I want to get like a sort of light wash for my first layer. I end up doing 3 layers, but my first layer I use the wet on wet technique. So I drop some clean clear water into some of the petals, and then I just drop tiny little bits of the paint into each of those sections, and you can just see how it kind of moves out to where the water finishes. Your paint will never go further than where you've laid your water down. It will always sort of stop along that edge. So that really does dictate how far out the paint will move. And as you can see, I'm just dropping them in. I am moving in sections, although I'm not worried about any bleeding. I do sort of move to an area that's separate from the one that I've just done, just to kind of help control it a little bit. Just continuing on here, just adding the water into the petals and then dropping the paint into it. And I'm going to heat set that now because I'm going to move on to my second layer, and some of that paint did actually bleed into the other petals on the first layer, but I'm not worried about that because, as you can see, I'm now going to start building up the colour with this second layer. And this time I don't put any clean clear water down first. I'm literally just moving straight from the paint onto the tile and I'm dropping that in, and sometimes I do blend it out a little bit with some water, but it's a much more concentrated pigment at this point because I want to start adding in some of that darker, that kind of darker dimension really. So I'm just going to add in that little bit of darker green here. I really don't think that you needed it that much. I had it out, so I thought I would add it in anyway. And I do actually get a little bit outside of the lines there. It's really easy to fix that. You can just add some water on top and then pick it up with a paper towel, and that gets rid of most of the paint that's in an area where you don't want it to be. Now I'm just going to move on to my final layer. As you could see there, I heat set again, and then I'm just dropping the pigment in straight from the tile as I did for the second layer, and I use tiny bits of water just to blend it out, and I make sure that I leave some white on each of the petals. I really think that that helps to add some variety to the petals, and just so that they're not a complete kind of block of colour. And I heat set that again just to finish it off. Moving on now just to the final bit of the watercolouring, I wanted to give the image some kind of background. I thought about doing blue as it's poppies and it's summer. I thought blue would look really pretty, but I also wanted something that I felt would be a little bit more dramatic, and it also ties in with the dark grey that I'm going to be using on the base of my card. And I'm going with the wet on wet technique again here, like I did with the first layer on the flowers. So I'm laying my clean clear water down around the image. You can see I'm going quite up near to the edge here and not dropping loads of water out towards the edge of the panel. I don't want it to spread out to the end. I still want it to be fairly restricted, but I think you can see quite clearly in this sort of frame that how well the paint travels, and also how well it gets restricted by where you've laid your water down. You can actually sort of see it stop, and when it does that and I think it looks a little bit too harsh, I pick up some more clear water and I just go over that edge so that I blend it out a little bit. I think it ends up making it look a lot softer when you actually blend it out, and here it's very obvious. I put a little bit too heavy a pigment down there, so I picked it up with a paper towel and I just went down again with a lighter wash and blended it out again. And I do go in and I fuss around a little bit with the image, and I add some bits in here and there just to add a little bit more dimension, or so to the left there, and obviously in that nook and cranny there, so it just provides a bit of contrast. And I heat set that at the end, and that more or less brings me to the end of the watercolouring. But I thought that it would look still continuing to fuss around here. Honestly, I mean, you can just never stop. You just keep adding bits on and adding bits on, but in the end I do come to a close and I start to look at the image and think, what else do I need to do to try and make this stand out a little bit more? So the answer was to add some spatters, of course. I do this quite a lot on my card, and again I thought it suited the style of card and image, so I added some on with a number 2 and a number 4 round brush just to give them a little bit of difference really. So I'm now going to remove the masking tape. I make sure to peel it back on itself so that I don't rip the card. And then I'm going to move on to finish off the rest of the card now. Here I'm adding some double-sided tape onto the back of my dark grey cardstock. My cardstock has actually been cut to size, so this is going to fit onto my base card, which I've already cut actually and pre-scored. And I actually went with the same Arches watercolour paper for my base card, which is very extravagant. I wouldn't normally do that, but because this is a tall card, I didn't actually have any Nina cardstock that I would be able to cut to size to mount this up, so I had to go with the Arches paper instead. So I'm just doing the same here. I've added some double-sided tape onto the back of my watercolour panel, and I'm going to put that down on top of the grey cardstock, and it's cut to size so that when I position it down, there's going to be a tiny grey border just showing either side of my watercolour panel. And I'm just going to move on now to the sentiment, and to do that I prepare some black cardstock with an anti-static bag, and I'm taking the sentiment from this new set, I'm stamping it in Versamark ink, and then I'm applying some white embossing powder and heat setting that. It then gets cut to size, and I add on some foam tape onto the back, and I'm just going to mount that onto the card now. I move it around a little just to make sure that I'm happy with the placement before I push it down. Just to finish the card off, I'm adding on a few sequins. These are from Lucy's Cards. It's the Ice Crystal mix, and it's a really pretty sequin mix I use quite a lot, so I thought that would just finish the card off. I really hope that you've enjoyed the video and that you'll maybe give loose watercolouring a try. Now moving on to the giveaway information. As I mentioned before, My Favourite Things have very kindly sponsored this video, and as such they are giving away a $25 gift voucher to their store. And in order to enter the giveaway, you need to be a subscriber to both my channel and to the My Favourite Things YouTube channel, and I will provide a link to their channel in my description below. You'll need to leave me a comment here on this video by the 17th of August, and I will announce the winner shortly afterwards on my blog. I will also provide a link to my blog in the description, so you can hop on over there after the 17th to see if you're the lucky winner. In the meantime, it just remains for me to say thank you all so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed the video, and I really hope that I will see you again here on my channel, and I will be sharing another project with you soon. Bye for now.